We will now take a look at a brand new technology for SharePoint called LINQ to SharePoint. Now, LINQ is Language Integrated Query, and it's a language feature that offers many advantages for us when we are accessing data in a SharePoint site. And we will see those advantages as we go through. The first thing I need to do is add a reference to the LINQ to SharePoint DLL to my project if I want to start using LINQ. I have some simple controls set up already, but we will do the LINQ coding throughout this demonstration. We need to add a using statement for system.link and also one for Microsoft.SharePoint.link. So system.link gives us access to the language features, and SharePoint.link will give us access to the specifics for a SharePoint solution. What we need to do is create entities for the lists that we want to manipulate with LINQ. And we could do this manually, but there's a very useful tool called spmetal which will generate the entities for us. There it is in the bin folder of the SharePoint root. This is the command that I'm going to run. We'll call spmetal with a web parameter to our intranet site and a code parameter to the entities file we want to create. And we could choose Visual Basic or C# as the language, and in this case I'm using C#. I run that batch file and the utility goes and creates my entities file for me. What I will now do is add that entities file to my project. It's an existing item, there it is, the contosoentities.cs file, it's just been created, and let's take a brief look inside what the spmetal tool has generated for us. It has generated a whole host of metadata that describes the lists and containers within our intranet website. So let's do a search for product. Actually, the first search finds the product launch tasks, which are, as we've seen in previous demos, in our intranet solution. But here we have an entity for the actual products list, and this is the one we are interested in for this demo. So that's the entities file. Now let's see how to use that in our solution. I have a button with some text that says Run LINQ Query, and an event handler that is hooked up to the click event. So what we can do is instantiate a data context for our Contoso's entities. We will call it CDC. This effectively will give us the ability to write LINQ statements. So the first thing we will do is instantiate it to a new instance of the Contoso's entities data context class. And we will pass in the URL to our intranet site. What we can then start doing is working with LINQ statements. So we will declare a variable of products and we will set it equal to this LINQ statement. So we will say from products list in data context.products. So we are effectively building a product item list collection. We can specify LINQ statements such as order by, and in this case we will order by the manufacturer. Notice the early binding. This is one of the key advantages. We are accessing list data in a SharePoint site, but Visual Studio is now able to bind with its IntelliSense to specific columns, and that's something we haven't been able to do before. Now, carrying on with our statement, we are going to select productlist.title and productlist.manufacturer, and again notice how we are early binding as IntelliSense is helping us. We will choose selling price and then we will choose manufacturer, so we can select those columns in any order that we see fit. So we are building up this collection called products that is effectively representing list items in the products list, but we are accessing it through the LINQ query. Now that we have that, we can start working with each item in that collection. So we can say for each bike product, and most of our manufacturers provide us with bike products, so we will use a sensibly named variable. And we can then use the products items collection now as our list to query through. We will create a table row for each bike product, and these are standard ASP.NET table rows. And then we will create the table cells that will enable us to display side by side the title, the selling price and the manufacturer. Now there are other things that we could be doing like binding grid views to this data, but what I want to show you is the way we can early bind to each individual field in our collection. The IntelliSense features of Visual Studio are really very helpful here. So we can set the text property of a cell, for example, to the current bike product in products. We will do something very similar for the next two cells as well. The second cell will be for the manufacturer, and so we will early bind to the manufacturer column, and the third cell will be for the selling price. So we will name that cell appropriately and bind to the appropriate field. So we have created the row now, and we have created 3 cells. Now selling price is actually a double variable, so we need to cast that appropriately. So we even have early binding to the type of the column, so that's pretty impressive. What we can now do is add those cells to our table row, and we can add them one by one. Product name to start with, and then the product MAMF for the manufacturer, and the product price for the selling price. Last but not least, we need to add that row to the table, so that we have this ASP.NET table called products table, and to that we can add the row. So let's save and build our solution. And let's navigate to our test page where our web part already exists. And we will click Run LINQ Query, which is our button. And we have retrieved the data via LINQ, and we've built up our table based on the products and then the manufacturers and the selling prices for these bikes. And you can see how they relate to the items in the actual list. So LINQ offers many opportunities and advantages for you. And just to recap, the main advantage was that we could use SP Metal to produce the entities file, and that allows us to early bind to list data and fields and even data types in our SharePoint solution.